Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off, because today I'll be joined by Mark Greenberg of Necromancer Games to talk about a new fantasy role-playing adventure currently up for funding on Kickstarter, and we'll be talking about Necropolis for 5e and Swords and Wizardry right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Happy Gary Gygax Day. That's right. I am recording this on July 27th, which, of course, we in the role-playing game community like to refer to it as Gary Gygax Day. And what better way for us to celebrate one of the fathers of modern role-playing games, i.e. Dungeons & Dragons, than by talking about a new Kickstarter, which is going to bring one of his famed adventures to the masses for 5e and Swords and Wizardry. So I had an opportunity a little earlier to talk with Mark Greenberg of Necromancer Games about Necropolis. So without further ado, let's jump on into the interview. Well, hi there, Mark.
Hi there, Jeff.
How are you today?
I'm phenomenal. How are you?
Very good. Good to talk to you. We've never met before. We are fellow Illinoisans, I guess. We live in the Chicagoland area, so that's pretty cool. Although I understand you're a bit of a Sox fan, so just don't take this personally. I just happened to toss it on today.
That's perfectly okay. Cubs are a great team, too, and I root for the Cubs unless they're playing the White Sox.
And I am actually pulling for the Sox this year. So I didn't like Ozzie Guillen as a manager, and he was always yapping about the Cubs. But, I mean, for the most part, I have no animosity towards the White Sox. But first of all, happy Gary Gygax Day.
Absolutely.
We are recording this on Gary Gygax Day. It is Gary Gygax's birthday, so we celebrate the contributions to pop culture, because if you think about it, hundreds of millions of people would not enjoy the sort of things that we enjoy if Gary and Dave Arneson hadn't teamed up.
Yep. It's hard to believe that he would have only been 83 this year.
No.
It's just amazing how much impact he had in the time he had. So absolutely.
Right. Yeah, my dad just turned 85, so it's kind of funny. It's like, wow, my dad is older than Gary Gygax would have been.
Yeah.
And and you think Gary Gygax, he would have been what, about 100 now? It's like, nope. And he was a Chicagoan as well.
Yep, absolutely. Worked in Chicago before he moved up to Lake Geneva.
That's right.
Which, of course, now is the famous place. But
right, isn't the old Dungeon store? Isn't that a museum now?
Yeah. Yep. The guy bought it, and he's trying to turn it into a museum. That's correct.
I am planning on checking that out one of these days, because Lake Geneva is not a long trip whatsoever.
Well, and if you obviously haven't been to GaryCon, that's where the granddaddy of conventions honoring Gary is based. So I've been going for a long time. It is a great convention.
I have not had an opportunity to go. I don't know if it's because of the time of the year or something like that, but the past couple of years, I've really thought of trying to go to cover it. But then I've had people say, well, as press, there's not really much you're going to cover. It's all just basically people playing games. And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that?
Well, the other thing, though, is that there's also just, it really is the place that brings together all the old crowd. And so if you want to interview people who've been in this industry forever, they're all there. and they're very approachable. It's getting bigger every year, but it's still one of my favorite cons. So big plug for Gary Con. It is in March, and who doesn't want to go to Wisconsin in March? I mean,
Yeah, because it's a little colder up there than down here. Not by much.
Yeah, just a
couple
little
of degrees.
Just a little.
So we're here today. We're not here to celebrate Gary Gygax Day or talk about Gary Con. We're actually here to talk about a Kickstarter that is currently going on. It is for Necromancer Games, who you are a writer for.
Correct.
I believe. And if people aren't familiar with Necromancer, they are actually published through Frog God Games. So if people are familiar with, I don't know, Swords and Wizardry, then they certainly do know Frog God. So right now, as we're recording this, I believe Necropolis, which is the Kickstarter, is this far away from 400% of its funding goal. So
Sounds
it is
about right.
already funded, and it runs through August 21st, I believe.
That's about right. Yep.
And let's see, off the top of my head, and as you can see, I'm not reading anything off the screen or anything. I want to say the digital products are going to be available, fingers crossed, obviously enough, in December, and the hardcovers will be available in February. So pretty quick turnaround, I would say. So we got two flavors as far as I understand. We have 5e, which I can say Dungeons and Dragons, and Swords and Wizardry. So let's talk, first of all, about what is Necropolis, because a lot of people are probably thinking, it's all ghouls and all these other things, when the reality of is a necropolis was simply a large cemetery during ancient times.
Right.
So ancient cities would have a necropolis. Even London had a necropolis railway in the 19th century that ran out to a cemetery. So let's talk a bit about Necropolis. It's an adventure and a setting. Am I correct, or is it just an adventure?
No, it's well. First of all, I've got to give credit where credit is due, and it does fit in with today's date, because the original Necropolis was written by Gary Gygax himself. Mm-hmm. He originally wrote it, I believe it was in 1992, for his Dangerous Journeys system,
right?
Which was published by Game Designer Workshop. Necromancer Games bought it and reissued it in 2002 as a D20 system game. And so this is this is the third iteration of it. It is to say it really is much more than just an adventure. I mean, it was originally designed, and a lot of that is still there, as almost a sort of a setting background. It was originally designed, and you can probably tell from stuff behind my shoulder over there. It's an Egyptian style setting. I think when it was Dangerous Journeys, it was in I don't even know how it's pronounced, Gary's World of Aerth, which reversed the E and the A, so it was AERTH, and it was Aegyptus. Now it is based actually in the World of the Lost Lands, in Kemet, which is effectively that world's version of Egypt. Sure. And so there's a lot of information in here about Kemet, some background, and a lot of other information that would enable a DM to play around with it and expand the setting in connection with, if you have it, the World of the Lost Lands World Book, which was my prior product for Frog God Games. So it has been described for the old school folks as Village of Hamlet followed by Tomb of Horrors.
Okay.
And there's a lot of truth to that, but it's bigger than that. That's sort of an example. you start off, well, you may start off just getting to Kemet. You may start far away, and there may be a whole set of voyages to get there that the DM is, certainly encouraged to do if he is not, for example, if he or she doesn't have the party already in Kemet. So you could be somewhere else and make a long trip to get there. But you start in a village called Artuat, and all is not as it seems in the village, of course, as it should be. And eventually you do find your way to, this is probably just not a spoiler, to a Necropolis. Which,
you've ruined it for everybody, Mark.
I know. It's such a spoiler. But yeah, it is a gorge filled with tombs, and you're looking for one in particular, of course. That's the ultimate goal. But I've play tested this a fair amount. I would guess if you're doing this with your home group and you're playing once a week, you easily have a couple of months worth of stuff here.
Okay.
If you want to, play it out. And I would also note that this is a little unusual in that it really is designed for a higher level party than usual.
I was going to mention that it's important for folks out there to keep in mind that I believe it's for levels 7 to 9.
Well, that's
is the recommendation.
That's the recommended starting level. It depends upon the number of characters. Mm-hmm. The more characters, you could probably get away with a little lower level. But I certainly started it around the 7 to 8th level for the play test, which seemed to work pretty well. But I was also running groups of 6 to 8 players as well. The other part of it is
those are pretty large groups compared to what most people are able to get around their table. I think for the most part, most gamers out there, they've got like an adventuring group of 4.
Right. And
I think that's the average.
And so this might be one where you need to have a couple of NPCs, and needless to say, there may
nothing wrong with hirelings and retainers.
There may be some opportunities to track somebody down who might be willing to tag along in Artuat if you're looking. This is also maybe not a bad one where if you can, you might want to bring 2 characters in, because not everybody may survive. They
may be staying quite a while at the Necropolis.
Part of the project here was converting it to 5e, and people say you can't kill players in 5e. Well,
it can be done.
I think this adventure can do it. So it's challenging, and it's also the kind of thing where I would also normally suggest that at least some of the players be pretty experienced. There's to succeed, it requires role playing. It requires, there are tricks, there are traps, there's combat. It will challenge. Gary intended it to challenge really skilled players, and to stay within the spirit. I kept that. If you're looking for a challenge, I think this is a good one.
I would take a guess that it also probably will require a dungeon master who's got some games under their belt as well.
That's actually a really good point. One of the issues is this is a complicated scenario. This is not the kind of scenario that you go into just skimming it right before and we've all been there, right? I generally have been the DM for a long time for my friends.
You're the forever DM,
yes.
Right? Isn't that? I'm a forever GM. I know how it works.
Yeah.
It's like, won't anybody else run a game?
It's challenging to get other people to do it. I have had a chance to do it sometimes, but not enough. And I will tell you, this is one where, we've all been there, where it's like, oh God, it's, people are going to be over here at 1:00. And so I'm scrambling all morning, trying to get all my notes quickly together. This is not this is one where you really have to have read it through, I think, all the way.
Sure.
And then maybe another time. And I've in rewriting it, I've read it through dozens of times, and I still, when I play tested it, sat down and reread the appropriate sections to make sure I remembered all the little bells and whistles that I had put in, because it's very dense, and it'll challenge a DM, and it'll challenge the players, which you don't necessarily see a lot of that out there in the market. So I think this is filling a very different type of niche in that regard.
Sweet. Yes, as you were talking about, having to read through it at least a couple of times, I kind of chuckle. Call of Cthulhu has always been my game that I've run, among
Excellent
others,
game.
but it's my go-to game. And I always laugh when I run across people and they're like, yeah, I'm going to pick up Call of Cthulhu and I'm going to run Masks of Nyarlathotep because I've heard how fantastic it is. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not. No, not your first game. No.
No.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this, Mark? Why don't we kick back? There is a short Kickstarter video.
Sure.
About a minute and a half or something like that. So let's give everybody an opportunity to check out a preview video for Necropolis.
Let's do it.
Dip.
Deep in the deserts of ancient Kemet, the land of the pharaohs, is a forgotten necropolis where long ago the mighty were buried with treasures untold, and where there is another tomb, within which lies one whose name few dare speak. An adventure for seasoned characters that will challenge even the most experienced players. An all-in-one full-color volume, lavishly illustrated with maps by the industry's leading cartographers. Enough background and material for dozens of hours of play over weeks or even months of game sessions. Pledge options include virtual tabletop packs, a collector's edition leather-bound edition, and a GM screen. Something has awoken within the necropolis. Do you have the courage to rid this land at last of a terrifying evil? Now on Kickstarter.
Oh my gosh! Oh, stunning!
Wasn't that incredible?
I have to say the artwork is really nice that I have seen.
Yes.
So far.
Well,
now is a lot of that artwork carried over from the previous edition, or is a lot of it new?
Well, a lot of it. I think almost everything you're seeing in the Kickstarter and others that we're not showing because they're spoilers, and the stuff behind my shoulder here is all new.
Excellent.
The majority of the original book had black and white. There's a wonderful piece of color cover artwork, but otherwise the interior is black and white. And this is a full color book. And I'll tell you, one of the things that you don't appreciate, one of the things that is cool is you sort of spend all this time working on this module, and then I want a piece of artwork. And I talked to Casey Christopherson, who is the art director for Frog God, and I'd sort of describe what he wanted. In a couple cases, I actually did my own sketch, which is embarrassing because I am the stick figure kind of artist.
Sure.
But I'd give him a sketch of what I wanted, as much detail, and he'd find the right artist. And then a short while later, in my inbox comes this piece of artwork, and I'd always have, my first reaction is, that's incredible. My second reaction would be one of two things. Either that's exactly how I imagined it, or, wow, that's not how I imagined it at all. That's much cooler than what I imagined. And I would
then rewrite the stuff.
And then I would actually, in a few cases, go back and rewrite some of it to match what I saw in the artwork. And that's something you don't get that when you're a home DM, unless you happen to yourself be an incredible artist, or have a friend or a spouse who's an incredible artist. It's all in your head, and you don't get the opportunity to actually produce this really cool stuff. And so one of the fun parts about this project and being on the creative side is getting to work, with real artists and have stuff suddenly show up, and it's like, yeah. And this is a great handout, a great visual, because it's hard, sometimes more complicated environments, it's hard to get that visual picture in your brain when somebody's just using words. And so the vast majority, if you're seeing color artwork, it's new for this Kickstarter. But we're still going to use some of the old artwork, the black and white, because frankly, it's phenomenal as well. And although I did a lot of rewriting of what Gary did, it's still his plot, it's still his characters, and a lot of it is very similar. So some
of the set pieces are very similar, I'm sure.
Some of them are. I did change a lot, but there's a lot that's still there that was, which for what it's worth is it's a little intimidating to sort of say, well, here's this work by Gary Gygax. Do something.
I'm going to change everything.
Yeah. So you have to have a little bit of sort of, a little bit of arrogance and courage, I guess, to say, yeah, you know what, I don't like what Gary did with this room or this encounter, and I'm going to do something different. But if I wasn't willing to do that, I probably wouldn't have been the right person to take on the project. Exactly. So I think I hopefully those who know the old game and look at this one will agree that it's improved. But if not, they can always send me hate mail, I suppose.
So you were just a moment ago, Mark, you were talking about visualization and handouts. So let's talk a little bit about virtual tabletops.
Oh, sure.
Because I believe that it is going to also be available for Fantasy Grounds. And then isn't there going to be like a VTT asset pack that game masters can utilize if, say, they wanted to use Roll20? Or personally, I think the Foundry is a really cool new virtual tabletop, but you'll be able to incorporate it into your online sessions as well. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. And I will note, I'm the creative guy. I'm not the technical guy. So, hopefully I will not misspeak, but, and I should actually also give a shout out, and again, I don't think this is probably a spoiler, but there is a big tomb at the end of this adventure. Hopefully nobody's surprised that they would find one of those in a Necropolis. Right. And the map for that has been done by the incomparable Alyssa Faden, for those who know her work. And she actually has been live streaming, working on the map over her Twitch and YouTube channels. And that is going to be, incorporated into the virtual tabletops. So, if like a lot of people, if you decide, I'm going to keep gaming online, either because it's more convenient, or you've got friends who are far away, or whatever, we've all been doing it recently, and so it seemed important for us to make that available. So the maps that are available for sort of encounters and the like that are in the book will all be VTT compatible. Fantasy Grounds is going to be fully supported because it's supported for 5e. So if you're using Fantasy Grounds, you'll have the whole toolkit and line of sight, and all that kind of stuff.
Everything's going to be coded for that, is my understanding.
Absolutely. Now, if you don't use Fantasy Grounds, if you use one of the others, whether it's Roll20 or whatever, there is going to be a I guess the generic pack of maps electronically that you can use, but it won't have all the bells and whistles that you would have with Fantasy Grounds. And I think realistically, at least at this point, that's just a financial consideration because you need to pay somebody to do all the coding. And
you're going to do that for the biggest player on the block at the moment. So yeah,
exactly.
I can see that.
Exactly.
Right.
But I mean, we've all been doing this virtual gaming for a while now, right? I mean, it became part of our lives, and it's not going away. And so it was important to add that. And if you look through, we've been adding stretch goals that add even other maps for sort of random encounters. You're in the desert and you're camping and you decide, as the DM, there's going to be an attack of something, during the third watch, you've got a map that you'll be able to use. Now, I think we've unlocked, 2 of those. I forget which ones. The hope obviously is that as the stretch goals fall, eventually all of those will be available. And I expect, frankly, they probably will all end up being available. And hopefully it's because, such as viewers of yours go and back this as soon as they finish this video.
Right. Now they're going to watch me talk and they're like, oh, absolutely not. Oh, no way. So let me ask, what is the page count approximately that we're going to see the finished product at?
I haven't the foggiest notion. And
Excellent.
And it's I realize that that's sort of a strange answer, but
Not really.
I can tell you that the manuscript, which just finished its final 5e review, so it's about to go to layout, is 160,000 plus words.
Okay.
That's a good sized adventure.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
What makes it complicated is until it goes into layout, we're not 100% certain because there's a lot of maps.
Right.
There's
artwork as well.
There's a lot of art. There's a lot of other stuff that has to go into this that, there's some tables and charts and all of that, and stat blocks also are complicated in terms of figuring out page count. And I think there's something like 50 monsters that are new in this. Now, the vast majority appeared in the prior Necropolis, but not all of them.
Sure.
Some of them really are totally brand new, all converted obviously to 5e. And there's dozens of NPCs, and we've got character notes on them, so it makes it easier to role play those guys. So it's there's a lot of material. How many pages is going to be? I have as soon as we get it back from layout, I would note there are a few people who've commented on the Kickstarter page that they would like the font size to be a little bigger than usual, so it's a little easier for some of the, shall we say, older folks to read. And I kind of put myself into that camp, I'm afraid. But that also obviously changes the page count, right? I mean, depending upon what font size you use.
Right.
So we'll see. But nobody should be afraid that this is going to be like a 15 or 30 page adventure.
Right. The reason I asked is because sometimes we run across some of these 5e Kickstarters, and the finished product's going to be about 100 pages. So I did not have that impression. I assumed we were looking at hundreds of pages.
Yeah, I don't know. Do I think it's going to go over 200 pages? I doubt it.
Really?
But we'll see. I mean, to be honest with you, I could be totally wrong. 160,000 words is a lot of words.
Yeah, that's why and then the art and things like that. I would think between 2 and 3.
And I'm going to push to have as much of that artwork be like full size as possible, because you don't want to shrink it down because it is absolutely gorgeous. It really is. So, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, there's enough material here. If a party tries to blow through it quickly, they can try, but they'll probably die anyway. So that won't serve any purpose. The only way to do this is to carefully and thoughtfully go through, interact with the NPCs, learn as much as you can. Don't never just barge ahead thinking, I've got a fireball, what do I care? That's just not going to work.
Sure. The Monty Hall approach to dungeon delving will not get you to the end of this adventure.
Not in this one. There are certain adventures, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Right. There's a lot of people who love playing Monty Hall.
I've done it, and I enjoy it sometimes too. That's not this one. That's not this one.
Right. So wrapping up, Mark, is there any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience about Necropolis or Necromancer Games or anything that pops into your head?
Wow. That's a good question. I think Frog God has like a 100% success rate on Kickstarters. So anybody
one of the
backing
reasons why we're talking.
Yeah. Should not worry about that.
I don't do this a lot.
The books, if you own any of the books, are nigh indestructible. The owner, Bill Webb, does not want to shortchange his customers, and so they're all library bound. They're high quality. That's one of the issues, frankly. Unfortunately for international backers, we've just not found a way to be able to get the hardcovers shipped internationally and successfully, which is why, unfortunately, for national backers at this point, it's a print-on-demand option, which is just not, it's not really our preference, but there just hasn't been a way to get safely, securely, and in a manner that doesn't cost obscene amounts of money.
Right.
These books shipped overseas. So hopefully that will change at some point. But for U.S. backers, and frankly, if I lived overseas, and I would probably find a friend in the U.S. to back it for me, and then I'd make a trip to the U.S. to go pick up my book. That's how much I think about it. So I think there's a lot of interesting stretch goals. I actually just finished my proposed layout for the GM screens, which are only available at the highest levels. Those are not, you can't buy those as add-ons. I think those will make playing it as a DM a lot easier. And that was fun. I'd never designed a DM screen before. That was kind of cool.
Right.
And as I said, we are, we're literally going to lay out, I think, at the end of the week. So, we are easily on schedule for getting this thing done. It's a fun adventure. Everybody, I play tested it. It's hard to say when you write it. How good is this thing?
Sure.
You get too close to it. And I made a lot of alterations, and you wonder, did this improve it? Did this not improve it? And I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from playtesters, from the editor, from Alyssa Faden, the cartographer, who had to read the whole thing to make the maps work. I think people have a really good time playing this, and it's something that really, I'm not aware of a lot of stuff out there in the market that sort of hits this particular niche of a little bit of sandbox, a lot of role playing, but also really challenging for good players in a higher level party. So, I'd buy it.
Well, aren't you even getting a copy? I mean, you wrote it. Come on, you have to buy it, Mark?
I think I'll get a copy. I might even get two. We'll see.
I was going to say you might get one to hand out to somebody. One thing I do want to mention to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about the quality of the printing. If anybody wants to get an idea of what they're going to get from Frog God Games, and of course, once again, Necromancer Games is published through them.
Correct.
I, not too long ago, reviewed the Swords and Wizardry Complete Rulebook and gave it a huge thumbs up, and really, really nicely done. That will hold up to repeated use. So my assumption would be same company, same printing,
same process.
Right.
you will be able to
same manufacturing.
You'll be able
right.
to open the book flat and look at it and use it as a reference. Although I know a lot of people now prefer the PDF, which you get as well. I mean,
Sure.
when you get your physical copy, you get a PDF, and I know a lot of people prefer that. This is one where there's a lot of referring back and forth. So frankly, I think this is one where having the physical book with like actual like bookmarks in it, right. don't fold over the corners, please. Please don't do that to my book.
Post-it notes if you have.
Yes, post-it notes would be fine.
All right, Mark Greenberg, author of Necropolis from Necromancer Games. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jeff,
for stopping in to chat about the current Kickstarter. Those of you out there who want to give it a peek, of course, I will have more detailed information in the show notes down near the comments section. So, Mark, enjoy the rest of your day and lots of luck with the rest of the Kickstarter run.
Thanks, Jeff.
A big thanks once again to Mark Greenberg of Necromancer Games for joining me to talk all things Necropolis. I'll have a link to the Kickstarter in the show notes, but keep in mind, Necropolis is available in 2 flavors, 5e or Swords and Wizardry. You can pledge your support for the project through August 21st. It is fully funded right now. You can expect delivery on the digital products December of this year, and the physical hardcovers should be available in February of next year. All right, that is it for this time out. So if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs right here on YouTube, as I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news and first looks at tabletop games. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, here's hoping you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your very own gang. Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're kicking it, how about subscribing to the Gaming Gang channel? Or seeing the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch? Or finding out what YouTube recommends you check out here at my channel? And of course, don't forget, get your geek on at thegaminggang.com.